Today, it's all about how to say things better. And the person that created that hashtag and my friend and communication specialist, Lila Smith. So please join me in welcoming Lila. Yay! How are you, Lila?
Thank you, everyone. Shh, it's fine. Sit down.
We need spotlights.
I have a spotlight.
Right?
That Todd Duncan and his team sent me when I was speaking on a social media panel.
Mm-hmm.
And they sent me a light, and it's better than the one that I had. So I've kept it, and I'm still using it.
Love it.
Yeah.
So for those of you out there, Lila and I met, I think over 2 years ago at a LinkedIn Live local event, which was all about taking your online connections and meeting them offline and in person.
Remember that?
Obviously pre-COVID days.
Yeah.
And every time you speak, Lila, I learn something new. And to me, there really is no better person when it comes to communications and saying things better, which is like the epitome of the best hashtag ever for your brand.
Thank you so much, Danny.
Yeah. And so, but tell people a little bit about your journey, because you started off as a professional actress.
I did.
And then you progressed through a variety of career transformations to end up being an entrepreneur now as a communication specialist. And a big part of my audience is also job seekers and people kind of, I think, in career transformation and career transition. So I would love to have you share your story and kind of like your thoughts and lessons along the way.
My thoughts when I was acting were behind the words of a character. So I had all of this going on, a story I was living, emotions that I was experiencing, and I would bring them to a stage and no one would see them or hear them. I love in your intro video how you say, we want to speak up, we want to talk, but we silence ourselves. And there are a lot of different ways that we do that. Some people have achieved a ton of success in business. And so then what, right? What do people know about you? And I felt that people knew nothing about me, that they knew what kind of characters I played. They knew how I sang a song, but they didn't really know much about me. And I felt invisible. Even though I was bringing myself and my stories to the stage every night, no one knew about it. And after a while, that started getting really demoralizing, especially coupled with the attitudes in the industry of, picking apart what someone looks like physically, whether they're the right type to play whatever role. I mean, I was even told that I didn't look Jewish enough to be in Fiddler on the Roof. And I'm like, you kidding? This is what a Jew looks like, right? But that was kind of like my thought process at the end of that career, when I started feeling like I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be killing myself and giving away any potential to make a real living for the rest of my life for this career that doesn't really feel fulfilling for me. I bet there are a lot of job seekers who can relate to that, right? Like, you've been in this position for so long and you've defined yourself by your accomplishments and your titles and what other people know of you where you are. Mm-hmm. I really had to start fresh. Mm-hmm. I didn't know where to go for that. I did know that my community, my artist community, especially like on Facebook, where we were all, socializing online, was not what it used to be, because I wasn't still auditioning for things. I wasn't still on stage. I wasn't still in shows. And people forgot how to talk to me. Like, I'm still a person. I have other interests. I have other things that I'm capable of. And in fact, I had, as my day job while I was in theater, a whole e-commerce career. That was my job to make money while I was acting.
Yeah.
My thoughts there were, I'm stuck here too. I'm not really living my full life here. I'm not creating anything. I'm leading people, so that part feels good. Just like being creative in theater felt good. But each part of my professional life then was missing a piece of the other. So I was kind of 50% in one area and 50% in another, which adds up to 50% of me all the time.
Yeah.
And 50% of me on a shelf collecting dust.
And you end up being that place of like mediocrity almost, right?
Yeah, right. I'm so sure that the people watching this, because they're following you, I know already that they are interested in learning, that they have depth, that they're interested in quality, that they want to improve, that they are driven. Like there are things that I know about the people who are watching simply because they've come here to see you. You're like a filter in that way. And so I know that they'll understand that. That's this feeling of, I shouldn't be in the middle.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be here. Why don't they know? Why can't they see me? Like, why am I invisible? And if you're watching and you can relate, drop a comment so that other people watching will know that you relate too. Like if you felt that things that are really truly special about you have been hidden or invisible, share that with us and with the other people who are here. A lot of why I decided to focus more on telling the true stories, the real life stories, my own and helping other people with theirs. What that feeling of why can't they see? Why am I taken for granted? Why don't they know me? Why can't they understand my intentions? Why are they taking what I say the wrong way? You know, there are all kinds of parts of us that are invisible unless we're intentional about helping other people see them.
So what was that catalyst that kind of like nudged you over from being corporate and in e-commerce to finding something of your own, like, and developing to where you are now?
It's such a weird question to answer because I didn't really find it so much as other people like yourself told me that I had it and then gave me money to do it. They said, you know, they noticed comments I was making on LinkedIn and would say things like, somehow you just say things better than other people. You want me to say this? And I'll be like, sure, I can help you to say that. Here, you know, and then was the response. And then here, we'll pay you to do more. And I was flattered, but it never occurred to me at the time that it could be a full-time thing. I had been a marketing consultant before, but it was just, you know, like a side thing. And marketing consulting and communication coaching are very different things, although I have both of those things as part of my work. But it was really other people saying to me, you're good at this, you're good at this, you're good at this. I got my UMAP done. Kristen Sherry showed me that there were parts of me that were just natural talents that I had been completely taking for granted, assuming everybody had these things. And I guess they didn't. And so I had to look at the things that were natural to me and say, okay, I could probably break those down into smaller steps and then share them with someone else. You know, video might be very intuitive to people like you and Palpina Tripp, but if you break it down into steps that you can give to other people, or at least show them what you would be doing for them, it's easier for them to get the impact of that video without having the natural ability to just intuit the technology.
Yeah. And you moved across the country too, right? You were based out of New York. Oh yeah, that. You moved from New York to Dallas, Texas, which couldn't be more different.
Howdy,
and
y'all.
And from there, like, walk people through a bit like of how you ended up, leaving corporate and coming up with this. Because what I love about you is that you came up with this methodology of communications, and we'll get to that in a subsequent, show, or in the subsequent minutes. But at what point did you think, okay, I have something here and I'm going to make a living on it, and I'm going to leave my corporate career behind and take that leap?
10 Tips, 10 Days, the hashtag campaign in 2018, launched my full-time professional efforts. And I didn't even mean for it to. I had created this methodology. I had done, what I said, like going into what I know how to do and kind of breaking it down, asking myself, what's happening for me in slow motion so that I can give it to other people to use with intention. Yeah. And I created this methodology, realizing that a lot of the things that made me good at communicating were exactly the things that we learned in theater as actors. And so I created a step-by-step process that looks very similar to a method of acting that I was trained in, and takes pieces from different methods as well and from my own personal values. Yeah. So from there, I shared these videos on LinkedIn during 10 Tips, 10 Days, 2018. And that was the thing. I shared it with people who had been waiting to hear from me how they could support me the way that they felt I had supported them. And as soon as I came out with something that was truly of value, they were like, done. We'll take it. We'll take it. We'll take it. We'll take it. And the money started coming in. Yeah. And I look like a risky person because I take big actions quickly. Like I did move to Dallas with about 11 hours notice. But before that, I had this confidence that came from income. Yeah. People ask you, like, when do you know when to make your side hustle a full-time thing? I think that's different for each person. Some people are able to just dive right in. Those people,
Yeah. And I want to give a quick shout out while we're on this topic. I do want to talk a bit more about 10 Tips, 10 Days because you did that. You launched that with Jake Jordan, Kira Day, Bobby Umar. And I still remember when it came out and I thought to myself, what a brilliant idea. Because it gives people this mechanism, almost like a formula to share whatever their expertise is, from Roger Wakefield doing plumbing tips to business tips to sales tips to strategy to whatever it is that their niche is. And then the goal was to give one tip a day in a video, right? And it was I still remember it exploded across LinkedIn 2 years ago, right? And every year now you've brought it back in this kind of annual revival, which I think Mike Rochelle, one of my colleagues.
Yes, I love him. I follow his tips.
I challenged him to do that, and Colin Harbour, a whole variety of people. So for those of you, I think, that are on the fence, wouldn't you say, Lila, if they don't know what to create, where to start, 10 Tips, 10 Days is a great place to start.
A great way to start. And you can do it anytime. It's a hashtag. And it's going on right now. More people continue to come on. We relaunch it every year, the same people, not because we're trying to have the same breadth of content over the platform again, but because every year it's worth reminding people that those in your network who don't know what you know want to know that you know it. So it's up to you to share that with them, and video is a great way to do that.
It is. And I do find, I think sometimes, especially for people that have been in the industry for so long, they have all this knowledge and experience in their head, but they don't know how to regurgitate it or pour it out to people, right? And this is a great way to just pick 10 tips, right? Just 10 easy things and then share it. So for those of you that are struggling out there to boil down your knowledge, this is a great way to do it.
For people who don't even know where to start with that, Fanny Dunnigan is one of the top content coaches. So if you really get stuck, then go hire her. It'll be worth it. People have gotten, I made a ton of money from the business that happened as a result of this, but people made other things that are more meaningful than just, some new clients. They've made incredible relationships. People got hired. And in some cases, I've been using some of my videos from 2018 to get business now. If I'm in a conversation that's about listening, I'll bring up that one video that I did about listening in 2018, and I'll include it in the conversation. It's just a link to the post, and I'll just say, hey, this is kind of what we're talking about, and I thought this might be helpful. So
Yeah.
you don't have to let your posts just die in the feed. You can use them to improve your relationships too.
Absolutely. See, Jihan was saying, I've only recently heard of people doing 10 tips, 10 days, but this is the first time I'm hearing the backstory. Yeah, it's got history.
HR tips. Yeah.
10 tips, exactly.
If I'm G and I'm doing this, I'm thinking, what are the 10 questions that I get asked the most? And what I get asked the most, not what any HR person gets asked the most, but why are people coming to you, G? Like,
yes,
why you? There's a reason why people would ask you instead of someone else. And I'd lean into that as you answer and provide your tips.
absolutely. Volta's out there, our mutual friend and artist. Love that you can, this whole orange background is designed by Volta. Love that you can repurpose all that content. Absolutely. Because like Lila said, if it's the top 10 questions you always get asked, you can keep on sending it to people as the answer to their questions. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. So if you haven't tried it, 10 tips, 10 days, for sure. But Lila, like, what do you think are some of the challenges that businesses have when it comes to communications? Why is there this need to say things better? What are people doing wrong, and what are the challenges you're seeing?
Well, there are a lot of assumptions. Right? I think that's the number one problem in the whole world. I think, like, if we want world peace, then we're going to have to get rid of assumptions. And communication is a great way to just stop before we say something and challenge our own assumptions, or intentionally put ourselves into rooms where those assumptions will be challenged by what we're hearing, what we're learning. But in a corporate environment, it's harder to do that fast. And there's a lot of competition, and people are grasping at moments to shine sometimes. So often people will go on and on. I'm guilty of it myself, being an over talker. And where that comes from is a lack of clarity and preparation. So you're going on and on and on until you find something that you believe is valuable enough to have warranted the time and attention of the person in front of you or the person you're communicating with. If you prepare ahead of time and you think through the steps, and we'll give them the SayThingsBetter method. If you just think through things ahead of time, it keeps you on point and on target, and it allows you to challenge other people's assumptions of you, of your work, of their own expectations, without being confrontational. And so people who are overly confrontational will find that their relationships will deepen and become more trusting. And people who are completely non-confrontational will find themselves with more confidence to speak up at all, because they don't have to worry that an attack will be coming. Yeah.
Well, we see it now on social media platforms, right? Especially, we've had this whole debate about COVID, and obviously the election that just passed. I mean, where do you find, are there certain rules that you've seen, or certain problems that have come out of it that makes you concerned?
I see people talking to themselves, enjoying the sound of their own voice in their own room, and because we're not around other people in person, we're missing the looks on people's faces of, but I guarantee you they're still there. There's this farce of anonymity that doesn't really exist. Like, we know who you are, we know where you work, we know what you've done, and we know when you comment on things or you create posts that are divisive. We remember those things, and they're permanent because they're on the internet. So we can always go back and find them again. But people are really not challenging themselves to consider somebody else's perspective and labeling each other with these terms that make it impossible for the labeled to hear the labeler. So no change will come from that.
Yes. And it's a fine line, right? Because you and I believe very strongly in being authentic and sharing from the heart, right? And even in your profile, I love this term that you have about like sharing deeply, right? But then there's also this balance of like oversharing in a business
Yeah.
environment, right? But let's talk about the first part first. Like, how do you define sharing deeply in a professional environment like LinkedIn?
So sharing deeply might mean giving generously of your knowledge. It doesn't only mean sharing your life story or sharing your heart and soul. It doesn't only mean sharing your religion or your beliefs or your values. It could be just how deep is your well from which you can give. And if you can do that with your communication and you know you're still reaching down, you still have more to offer, keep reaching, keep going, and keep finding new ways to pull things out of your well and give them to others. That generosity, that feeling of, I know this could really make a difference for someone, is sharing deeply. Not just it'll feel good for me, but it could mean something for them.
I love that. Because I think people mistaken be authentic as I'm going to show myself crying and like pouring my heart out on the internet. And
let's talk about it. That word authenticity, right?
Yeah, let's do that. Yes.
It's scary for some people and it's too woo-woo for others. And for some people, they end up driving people away who are really important to them.
Yes.
And then they feel they can never be their true selves for fear of offending someone. So the word without any context or direction means nothing and can be damaging. Authenticity just means like, is this true to you? Yes or no? That's it. So people think of authenticity as a few different things. You had mentioned like crying, right? But when you share only crying moments, what we learn is that your authentic self is always in tears.
Yes.
Is that true of you? Because that is the impression we get, you know? Or do you have other parts of you that are authentic too? And if so, please give them to us. Give us the moments of your vulnerability. Let us have those. Let us be here for you. But don't make it our job to only be here for you. You know, be here for us too. And the other people where they're always offending people when they're their most authentic self, I think that what they're really doing is being instinctive. They're reacting. They're in a moment. They want to be raw. They want to be unfiltered. And so they call that the authentic them. But if it's not authentic to them to want to actually hurt somebody's feelings, then is that the authentic you? Or is that just the instinctive you? Because there's another you, which is the intentional you. And that's where I work with people.
Oh my gosh. Lila, I think that's the most beautiful definition I've ever heard of authenticity. And sharing deeply. So I want to repeat it again because it's worth repeating. To share deeply is to give generously of your knowledge. That's it. Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. Whatever that is to that person.
Anything, you know, the things that you know, it's not just how to do something, but I know how I would respond to this. I know that people with a background similar to mine might think this way about it. It's giving generously of your knowledge of the questions you think to ask.
Yeah.
Not just sharing from yourself, but sharing in a moment.
Absolutely. Michelle, one of my former guests, love this, Lila. Giving, love this, giving from our well, which is infinite.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Isn't that incredible how infinite our wells truly are? I mean, let's take a second with that, shall we? Like Michelle. Yeah. Our wells are infinite. When you think about how long we've already lived and how many moments we've already learned from, if we took the rest of our lives to remember those moments and share them with someone else, we would never finish. And that's just with stuff that's already happened.
Yeah.
Having nothing to do with what's about to come.
Yeah.
It's true. Our well is infinite. I love that she called that out.
Right.
That.
Michelle's awesome. Are you guys connected? She
I think
is.
so.
Yes.
I'm following her.
Yes. So yeah. And so let's dive even deeper now. Let's get into the tactics, right? So we're ready. We're ready to give from our well. We're ready to share our knowledge. So how, right? How to do it. So give us your 5 tips to say things better.
Let's do it. Tip 1, verb your values. This is actually something that comes from acting. It's a process called actioning. A lot of people who are trained in Stella Adler's technique of acting do this. Before an actor goes on stage, they pick a verb to guide their communication. It's not like they say it out loud, but they keep it in mind and they ask themselves, what do I want to do to this person? Or what do I want to do to this person as I'm communicating? And they decide what that verb is. I want to invigorate, or I want to bless, or I want to cherish, or I want to uplift. Whoever that person is, and you make that choice. And I thought, why can't we do this off stage in real life? Why do we always end up saying things unintentionally and we don't know how they've come out, or we worry about what our tone of voice is? Tone of voice is just an effect. It's a result of what happens inside coming outside, without intention or with intention. When you choose what your intentions are by choosing a verb that's true to you, then your voice comes out the way you want it to be heard, the way you want it to be felt. So verb your values, and we've got a workshop for that next week we can talk about later.
Yeah,
we'll really about writing your intentional voice.
And that reminds me, even like for a show, right? Right before you get on a video, right before you do your 10 tips, 10 days, for those of you out there. I saw a few people saying they're going to try the 10 tips, 10 days.
Good.
Yes. I mean, wouldn't that apply as well, Lila?
Absolutely.
Like right before they record a video, right before even me get on a show.
For sure.
So the trick then is to pick a verb, right? Or a value.
I mean, pick what you want to make sure your video does. So let's say it's one of my values to activate. I want to activate my audience. Then I choose to do that, and I just decide I'm going to activate you. And you can just see that everything about my body and my voice shifts a little bit. When I'm in activate mode, I'm like, here's what you do. Now go ahead and do it. Let's see it. Put the proof in the comments, because I choose to activate. If I'm choosing instead to equip, or to teach, or to train, I'm in a different mode. You choose what that verb is, and it helps you focus on making sure you're providing value in the way that you want to. Absolutely. If it's just to connect, then you sit and you're having a conversation.
That's my word. Yes.
Yeah, that's one of your verbs, isn't it? To connect.
It is. Yeah. And that, I think that comes out a lot from StrengthsFinder and from UMAP, which is the basis of it, right? Like, so for those of you out there that are struggling for that word or those words, definitely reach out to Lila, because, you know, through UMAP or StrengthsFinder and all your other workshops, those words, even when I teach content creation, your values dictate and direct so much of your content and communications. Yeah.
And to direct is a great verb too.
Yes.
But it's a very different feeling, isn't it? Like when you're trying to direct someone, you're giving them the instructions, the feedback in the moment of your video. So if you're making a tip that is too direct, you want to start with something that needs to be directed. So this is how this looks in action, right? If you're creating a tip and your value is to direct, give people direction, you have to talk about the path that they might be on and how to recognize it. And then you want to show them, here are the signposts that you might see to know you're going in a better direction. The symptoms of what it is now, this is what we're seeing the scene as. here's what we want to visualize. Here's what we want to experience. Now try these things to get there. That's to direct in action, in content.
See? Michelle's like, yes, demonstrate it. Don't just state it.
Yes.
Verb your values. Absolutely. Gihan's like, I'm wowed and we're only on number 1.
That's number 1. Yeah. So number 2.
Number 2.
Motivation. Have you ever heard any of those like SNL jokes or whatever? You see an actor or a character of an actor going, "What's my motivation? I just don't understand what my motivation would be to do that. Why would I say that?" And actually, that is a part of that's a part of acting. It's funny when you think about it like that, but we do have a motivation to say things. We have a motivation to stay on the phone too. There's a reason why people do things, everything, and it's always something positive. Even if you think of the person you disagree with more than anybody else in the world, and take a moment, I'm asking everybody watching to do that. Think of someone that you always disagree with, or who makes you feel terrible, or whom you would classify as a bad guy, an evil villain. Picture that person. Even that person is positively motivated. So take this moment right now for active empathy and ask yourself, what is that positive thing that they seek to get? What do they need? Is it external validation? Is it power? Do they need influence? Do they need money? Do they need confidence? Do they need to defend themselves? What is it that they feel is threatened that they can get back? Not what do they stand to lose, but what can they stand to gain if they take an action to get it back? And so that's why understanding motivation is really important, because we can challenge ourselves too, but we also can, in a moment that feels fraught, that feels high stakes and therefore very stressful, we can focus on the positive too and remind ourselves why we're doing anything. If you're in an argument with somebody in a grocery store and you ask yourself, does this really serve my motivation? And the answer is no, you drop it. So motivation in action, we use imagine the moment. We use a tool of visualization where you create with your imagination, like actors do, a moment in the future and you bring it into the present. So let's say that what you really want to do is be the best provider for your family. And that is the most important thing to you, is to be the best role model or the best provider to your family. That motivates you. It's nice and it's theoretical. Stories make things real. So create the story, create the moment when you know you've done it. So it might be for you, Fanny, it might be your son talking to one of his friends. And what would he say that would make you feel that you have been a success? What would he say to his friend about you?
That he was seen and that he was supported.
So imagine his friend saying, man, my parents don't get me at all. You know how it is with parents? And your son says, actually, I'm sorry to hear that, but no, I always feel that my mom really wants to get to know me. She asks me a lot of questions. She's always observing the things that I do. She makes suggestions. She asks for my input. And I can tell you endless stories about how she's done that. I'm sorry that you don't have that, but I'm really grateful that I do. And if you can imagine him saying that, and that is your motivating.
You can feel it right here.
That's so much stronger. Your pursuit of that moment is positive for you. And it's so much stronger than anything else that could possibly come at you. We can't be our most intentional communicators if we're triggered here, distracted by circumstance, stressed out. But if you can plant yourself in that beautiful moment, this memory in the future that you've created in the present, you stay motivated. You stay present.
It's like visioning, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so to elaborate then, motivation is both our self-motivation, and then what do we think is the motivation of our target audience or our target client?
There.
Right?
I mean, this is really just about, I mean, the difference we want to make in the world could be to anybody, or it could just be, what's the most important thing to me? If by the end of today or by the end of my life, I haven't done this, then I haven't done well enough with the life I've been given.
Love it.
It's got to be that one thing.
Okay.
You know, we need stuff though too. Like, moments in the future are nice, but we need things now, right? So that's where the following steps come in. Step 3.
What's number 3?
3 is objective. Your objective. What yes do you need? So that by the end of a conversation, or as a result of posting something on social media, or in response to an email that you get, or that you send, or when you have completed doing a presentation, or after a sales call, or after a text that you send, or after something you say in passing to your husband or your child, what is the thing that will tell you whether it was worth it to do that or not? How will you know you were a success? It's just about clarity. It's keeping focused so we don't go off on all these tangents. And it keeps us present in that moment. I need to get a yes on this and define that yes specifically. I need verbal confirmation that my son knows he's supposed to be home by 10 p.m. I need a written acknowledgement of the expectations and the timeline for this project. So did I get that? Yes. That means you fulfilled your objective.
And it's specific.
Specific. You have to know what it looks like. I have to get this, so that when I ask myself, did I get this? You can say, yes.
Love it.
This was a win for me. And then step 4 is your audience objective. And this is where you're thinking about that person that you're partnered with in this moment, your audience, whoever that is, the person that you're sharing yourself with, talking to, communicating with. What do they need? What yes do they need to make this moment a win for them? Even if you're cold calling someone in sales, even if you're sending a resume to a recruiter who's never met you, if they look at it, what would make them say, yes, this is the one. Thank goodness I opened this email today. Thank goodness I looked at this resume. It's exactly what I was looking for. And what I was looking for, you know, in this case for job seekers, you've got the job description, but you also have more than that. You have the things that set you apart in an industry around the description. They have the keywords of what they think has to happen in a job. These are really the need to haves. You get to tell them how your delivery of those need to haves makes you the desperately wanted to have. We've got to have her. We've got to have him, because it's so clear that this is a yes. What a win. What a win that I got a text that invited me to go on a road trip to Colorado. What a win that I, am clear on who's picking up my kid after school. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but having clarity is a win. Having passion is a win. Feeling appreciated is a win.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it could be any of those things. You can give somebody a functional outcome, a social impact outcome, an emotional outcome that for them would be a win. And if they got that, they would say, yes. So what's that yes that they need?
And then, even now, I feel like when people share their stories, I think even just knowing that we're not alone in what we feel.
Companionship.
Is a yes, right?
Yes.
Lila just said something that I've been thinking and feeling for the past 2 months, right? So then that's a yes also, right? Like, I don't feel alone. I don't feel like I'm the only person experiencing that.
Right. To be heard is an emotional outcome. To feel partnered is an emotional outcome. It gives you confidence. And if you're also giving a functional outcome, that might be, here's a step you can take. Here's an action you can take, something you can do differently right now to create a different outcome for you, then that step is just as much of a yes as a functional outcome as the emotional outcome of I'm not feeling alone anymore.
Love it. Number 5.
Last thing is you got to figure out how you're going to give them that yes.
What does that look like?
Once you figure out what they need, you look at the things, and I talked about this a little bit with Michelle earlier, or I think it was with G actually, G, your HR person.
Yes.
And I asked, why do people ask this of you? So you know the functional things, you know the bullet points of what people want, and you know what you can and can't provide to them. You focus on the things that you can provide, and then you find all the ways that you provide that thing differently than someone else. And you bring those things to the table. You pick the tools out of your toolbox that are going to help you fix this problem in a way that no one else could. And they make it more special because you've thought about it. And it keeps you organized so that you're not feeling desperate and confused in a moment. You know what you're going to do. Volta, who was watching before and might still be here now, she's a watercolor artist. And she creates GIFs, .gif files.
Animations.
Yeah. And so if she wants to say something to someone or she wants to win their business, imagine what her tools are. What she wants them is for them to feel celebrated or uplifted or encouraged or empowered. And she really likes to acknowledge and encourage people who have small businesses. You hear her talking about Sandwich Hag all the time, her favorite banh mi place in Dallas. And one of the things that she can do if she, differently to uplift that business, to empower that business, to color that business, is to create an Instagram story. That's something she can do. And she can do it differently than anybody else. Because whereas I or you might throw up like some graphics with text and use the GIFs that are already there, she can create custom GIFs.
Yes.
And she can create something that is special and one of a kind that no one else will be creating for Sandwich Hag. Is she the only artist who could do this? No, but this art that she makes is only coming from her.
Yeah.
It's only coming from her. A story might be useful. So if you're a job seeker and you're thinking like, well, how can I give a recruiter a different way of looking at my project management skills than anybody else? Well, what tools do you know how to use? Do you know how to use Trello? Can you use Trello to create a streamlined experience of what it looks like for the recruiter to begin at their search for the candidate and end up with you? And can you put more things into a Trello board demonstrating, as Michelle said before, rather than just telling them what you do? Can you go beyond? What tools do you have? What skills do you have? What life stories do you have that would make a point sing and feel like a yes to that person?
And a lot of them can do that through the 10 tips, 10 days
yeah.
methodology too.
Absolutely.
Right? You can introduce something in some of the earlier tips and then show a tip, right? Do a demo of something in another tip.
You can make your whole resume hot too, because you can link into, keep it in a Microsoft Word document so it can get through an ATS, right? But while you're doing that, think about those top 10 keywords that are the top searched keywords for your job description that you're trying to get hired for. And find those keywords and create a tip around each one of those that comes from you, that's a story of what you've achieved in this way, and teaching someone how to do it for themselves or how to spot if it's not happening. And then take a link to that post that you share with that tip and hot link it into that keyword on your resume. So then a recruiter gets the top keywords, but they also get so much more.
There you go, guys. Comment below with your questions for Lila, okay? And while we wait for those to come around, I want to talk about your LinkedIn journey, Lila.
Okay.
Because I loved your transformation. I call you the comment queen. And I always use you as my illustration of the power of comments. And I actually, if you don't mind, I want to bring up your profile as we talk about this.
Sure.
Okay. So as I do that, why don't you tell people kind of like your journey on LinkedIn and how you came to having all these followers and connections, and then we're going to dive deeper into the importance of comments.
Okay. Well, my journey started with a personal challenge. I know we're also live on Facebook in this moment, and all due respect to that little blue and white app, it was sucking the life out of me. And I didn't like it anymore, and it felt negative, and it felt sad, and it felt like only fighting and an echo chamber, and I didn't like it. I didn't want it anymore. So I asked people on Facebook, what do you think I could do? In the month leading up to my birthday on July 1st, 2017, so what do you think I could do differently every day for a month that might make a difference for me? You all know me pretty well. You can decide what that difference might be. So people gave me suggestions like, do these workout videos once a day, or try these shakes, or meditate, which is still a big challenge for me, or take courses. Here's one to try. People really came up with great ideas. And Ashley Robinson, one of my good friends, former roommate and connections, mentioned gratitudes, daily gratitudes. So every day since June 1st, 2017, I've opened my day by giving thanks. The other thing that I did starting June 1st, 2017, and going for 1,000 consecutive days before I took any days off, was to go on LinkedIn. And I started with making sure that I spent 15 minutes on LinkedIn every day before I would allow myself to go to Facebook. Now I don't know anything about Facebook anymore.
Me either. I know. I've left Facebook unless I'm posting something about my kids.
Yeah. I mean, I love seeing people's kids and stuff, which I really see more of on Facebook. But I've got so much personal value out of the LinkedIn community that I found, that I stayed. And it's not just about posting and getting attention. It was about what I was learning that helped me to grow in ways that I never could have if I hadn't had access to other people's life stories that were different from my own. Those people were sharing deeply the way that we talked about before on LinkedIn.
And you have a comment formula, right?
I do have a comment
through that, because I'm gonna share one of your posts, because I want people to see the genius in this, because I learned about commenting from you, right? You always engage, you always kind of solicit responses from people, you coach in the comments. I mean,
that's true.
Tell us your formula.
Well, to coach might be one of my verbs, depending on the day, but it's just to acknowledge, and then expand, and then invite. And it doesn't have to be a ton, but acknowledge first what the person who posted said. What's the value that they gave you, and what did you take out of that? What was your takeaway from what was provided? Find something positive to say. Don't just come on and be like, well, this is what I think. Acknowledge someone else's perspective first, because they started this conversation and you're in their house. So you have to be a good guest by acknowledging what they've done. And then you can expand. Here's what I took out from what you said. And here's my expansion that can only come from my perspective. Here's how I see it, or here's something that I have to add. And then invite someone else who's relevant into the conversation by tagging them in. Go @ and then start typing someone's name, and that person will come up. Pick someone who either will add value by adding depth to the conversation happening, or maybe who could benefit from the information being shared by you or the person posting, or someone who might have a completely different perspective. That's where the rich conversation comes in. And it's funny because it sounds like you're inviting someone to disagree with you, and people would be very scared to do that, I think, because they don't want to look inferior in some way. But here's what happens. When you say something, somebody who agrees with you sees it and they say, yeah, that sounds pretty good. But in contrast with someone who feels completely differently, some people will see that person's words and think, yes, The other people who before, without the contrast, would have felt like, yeah, that's pretty good, will say, oh, well, definitely not that. That one. That's the one I want. And so it strengthens the magnetization of your comment by having that contrast there.
I want to show people an example of this. Okay, so you posted something about the grammar police, right?
Oh.
And then, so Anne, this person commented, right? And this is your formula in action, right? So you reply back, and you're like, Anne, as always, you bring the value and expanding this idea, right? So that's your acknowledge, right?
Yeah.
And then from there, your second paragraph, I do think having high standards for ourselves and so forth, right? But that is your expand,
right?
Isn't it? Yeah. So there you go, folks. Formula in action.
Yeah. You can, I mean, on any given day, and sometimes it's just like, wow, thank you so much for watching, you know. But if there's a real discussion going on and somebody has taken the time to create a post or a very thoughtful comment,
absolutely,
they have shared deeply.
Absolutely.
And that moment, if you feel that someone has opened their heart, their life, their mind, their experience, and given generously to you, imagine it gift wrapped. And imagine how you would respond if it came to you in a beautiful box instead of in a social media post. And do that.
Yeah. And people appreciate that, especially on LinkedIn, right? Like it opens up dialogue. And from there, you're offering your insights. And from there, people start to see your tips and expertise. And from there, you get on a call with them. And from there, you could end up with a client, right?
Yeah.
I know for sure that's happened to you. That's happened to me.
Many times. Yeah. I mean, when I moved to Dallas, a lot of people don't know this actually, but there was this kind of, and you were in it, there was this behind the scenes movement, this little mini movement in a group message that I think Kyle Burton, Aaron Hennig, or Von Hennig now, had started when I was coming to speak at LinkedIn Local Plano. And I had been kind of talking about like someday in the future, I might like to move to Dallas. You all seem so cool. Had never met anybody in person, but I felt like this. And so I think Aaron started this group conversation on LinkedIn and titled it Lila to Dallas or Get Lila to Dallas. And so there was all this stuff going on in the back end. Like Rachel Chang was like, here are a few jobs. And Bree Crow was like, here's somebody looking for this. And someone else was like, I need someone to help me with this. And I knew that I had something significant here in Dallas before I ever moved here, before I had ever met any of these people in person. I had something like 150 people in my LinkedIn network in the DFW area who would be willing to go to bat for me because of the relationships I built mostly in the comments.
Yeah, because you gave generously of your knowledge. You like how I tied that back together?
Continuity high five.
Oh, Lila.
Annie.
Oh, wrong way. Wrong way. There we go. I don't know.
We have other fine skills.
That's not our skill. Well, I mean, time flies when we're having fun.
Yeah, I
guess so. The hour is up already, but I do want you to share real quick, because I always enjoy hearing people's gratitude practice and their life lessons. So as we kind of head into Thanksgiving, oh my gosh, we're in November, right? Like, what are you grateful for right now, Lila?
I think, I know you can relate to this, and I think that a lot of people watching will too, that this whole year has felt in many ways like the things are happening to us. Circumstances. It's like, I would, but all of the things are happening at the same time. Good, bad, whatever it is, it's overwhelming. And it makes us feel sometimes very frozen in that moment, like frozen by circumstance. So this morning, my morning gratitude from today was just feeling very, truly deeply grateful for the things that never change, things that are outside of circumstance. Art, true friends, true love, and nature, music, our ability to think, human nature, our capacity to give. These are things that I'm grateful for that will never change, no matter what circumstances do.
They're eternal.
Yeah, I'm grateful for the eternal.
And what's a life lesson that you like to share?
Life lesson, seek approvers, not approval.
Say it one more time. It's worth repeating.
Seek approvers, not approval. Don't look for how you can please other people. Look for the people who are pleased by you.
Yes. Don't please other people. Look for people that are pleased by you.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm pleased by you, Fanny.
Likewise.
I'm so pleased.
Oh, Lila, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your time, your giving generously, and tell people where they can take your course or take your workshop. Give us details around that.
I'm doing something late night next week. I mean, it's not that late. It's 7 p.m. Central. And you can go to, I have a bit.ly link. It's bit.ly/verb1118. It's all caps, VERB 1118. And that takes you to a place where you can get pay what you want tickets for my workshop. We're going to do Verb Your Values. And we will discover what that intentional voice is for you. So that
get it right.
Am I being my authentic self? Yeah, but it's all caps on the verb.
Okay.
So bit.ly.
And is there a dot between?
And there's no .com. So it's just bit.ly/all caps verb 1118.
Let me get it right here.
See then, and you can also find it in my LinkedIn profile. So I always put up next what I've got going on in my profile. That's the one. Yeah, so I would love to see people there. I'd love to see you there. If anybody has already taken this workshop or been through it before, it's always a new experience because you're learning from the people in the room what their values are. And that contrast, again, provides such rich value for the people there. Oh, okay, now I get it. Yes, I know I'm this, but I especially know I'm not that. I know that there's a difference between someone who seeks to maximize and someone who seeks to support. And I might be this person, and that's okay.
And I've sat through your presentations and workshops numerous times, and I think it also like
you did the beta workshop at Bishop Arts, Little House of Bishop Arts, 3 Clark's Place,
and each time I think because we're different people in different periods of our life, each time new verbs come up for me and new adjectives and new thoughts come up. So for those of you that have already done it, like I encourage you to even go back again, because every time I go back, new thoughts come into my head because I feel I'm a different person this month than I was 3 months ago, than I was a year ago. Our brand keeps on evolving. So definitely check that out, folks. Definitely connect with Lila. Mike says, Lila, I'm grateful for the awesome questions you added to my first shot at 10 tips, 10 days. Yes, you're deeply thoughtful and expressful. Yes, Mike is awesome.
Look at Mike's comment. Awesome. This is beautiful.
Mark says, great program. I'm going to have to rewatch this one. Absolutely.
Mark, you just identified yourself as one of my people.
Absolutely.
Look out. Now we're going to be best friends.
Just remember to shine your light, share your message, verb your values, say things better with Lila, and share it with the world through video, through communications. Lila, thank you for your time. Thank you for all your gifts. Everyone out there, make sure you go to her course. Again, it is bit.ly/verb1118. You don't want to miss it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Lila. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, you too.
Always a pleasure.